A woman who is now the head of the Democratic National Committee against the Sanders campaign, and between the Clinton campaign and the Department of Justice during the Clinton email investigation.
Let's welcome Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont.
When Bernie Sanders stepped on stage for this CNN TV1 town hall event in March, he probably didn't know that the evening before, Donna Brazile, then a CNN commentator and vice chair of the Democratic National Committee, now head of the DNC, had sent an email to the Clinton campaign captioned, "From time to time I get the questions in advance," and saying, "Here's one that worries me about HRC," flagging a question intended for Clinton on the death penalty. The question noted that since 1976,
we executed 1,414 people in this country.
Clinton's communications director, Jen Palmieri, seemed grateful for Brazile's assistance, writing back that evening to say, yes, it is one she gets asked about. Not everyone on the campaign staff likes her answer, but can share it with you. Brazile only became interim DNC chair during the party's convention in July, after a WikiLeaks dump of DNC emails revealed pervasive collusion between Brazile's predecessor, Deborah Wasserman Schultz, and the Clinton campaign against the Sanders forces. Today, Brazile said she supported both candidates and, quote, often shared her thoughts with both. As it pertains to the CNN debates, I never had access to questions and would never have shared them with the candidates if I did, except that the event in question was not a CNN debate, but a town hall.
And all you have to do is take a look at WikiLeaks and just see what they said about Bernie Sanders. He never had a chance, and I was so surprised to see him sign on with the devil.
The Podesta emails also show Clinton campaign press secretary Brian Fallon, formerly a spokesman for the Department of Justice, getting a heads up from an unnamed DOJ official on the night of May 18th, 2015. Hey, Brian, this was filed tonight. 14 minutes later, Fallon emailed Clinton confidant Cheryl Mills to relate the tip. DOJ just filed a briefing saying the government proposes releasing HRC's cache of work-related emails in January 2016. Get out, exclaimed Mills. Palmieri then looped in Podesta and Huma Abedin to set a conference call for the morning. This will be a thing tomorrow, and she is in front of the press. Neither the Clinton campaign nor the Sanders campaign responded to our request for comment today. Bret.
James, there's new evidence tonight about the Clinton Foundation investigation, if you will. We just don't know how far it got.
Yes, we've been covering this in depth on this show, and the WikiLeaks documents reveal that Chelsea Clinton, back in December 2011, sent an email to John Podesta and others voicing her, quote, serious concerns about Teneo, the private firm run by Doug Band, a top aide to former President Clinton and a Clinton Foundation officer. Teneo was also the employer of Huma Abedin while she worked simultaneously for the State Department. Chelsea wrote that her father would be, quote, horrified by the way Teneo was drumming up business overseas using the Clinton name. For months now, the Clinton campaign and the State Department have denied any pay for play between the foundation and Mrs. Clinton's aides at State.
There was no quid pro quo or anything like that here.
We have seen no evidence of any behavior, any relations with the Clinton Foundation that weren't completely above board. And in this case, it's likely that what they were dealing with during many of these calls was the immediate aftermath of the Haiti earthquake.
Today, however, State Department emails obtained by the Republican National Committee and first reported by ABC News show that a top aide to Secretary Clinton, in the hours after the devastating earthquake that struck Haiti in 2010, instructed officers at the Clinton Foundation, when sifting through offers of medical aid and humanitarian assistance, to distinguish between offers coming from, quote, FOB or Friends of Bill and those originating elsewhere. Caitlin Klavoric also referred to WJC VIPs, meaning very important people tied to William Jefferson Clinton. Those who fell outside those categories were to be directed to USAID. The State Department once again today denied any favoritism.
What I'd say is see no evidence that preferential treatment was given to anybody based on their association with the Clinton Foundation or with the former president himself.
And in response to all of this, Donald Trump tweeted today, and I quote, "Crooked's State Department gave special attention to, quote, Friends of Bill after the Haiti earthquake. Unbelievable," unquote. Bret.
Now it's just down to Crooked's. James, very quickly, you know, when you talk about this with the Clinton campaign or Democrats, they say, listen, this is all about Russia. Russia hacked these emails. We don't have any indication that they're denying that these things are real. In fact, Hillary Clinton in the debate referenced a speech where she said she was talking about Abe Lincoln That's in the emails, in the transcripts of the speech. So that is the response you get.
Right, and at no point does anyone challenge the authenticity of these documents. We do always have to be careful when we're looking at them to make sure they're authentic and not doctored in any way, but so far there is no indication of that.
Okay, James, thank you very much. Donald Trump is ripping into Republicans as disloyal and says he is now free to fight the way he wants to. The embattled nominee is trying to survive the fallout from the leaking of an 11-year-old tape featuring vulgar comments about women and poll numbers that have shifted. Chief political correspondent Carl Cameron is with the Trump campaign tonight in Panama City Beach, Florida.
Donald Trump blasted House Speaker Paul Ryan first thing this morning for saying he will no longer defend or campaign with Trump and instead focus solely on protecting the GOP House majority. He tweeted, quote, "Despite winning the second debate in a landslide, every poll, it is hard to do well when Paul Ryan and others give zero support." Later, he tweeted, "Our very weak and ineffective leader, Paul Ryan, had a bad conference call where his members went wild at his disloyalty." Then this: "It is so nice that the shackles have been taken off me and I can now fight for America the way I want to." Trump attacks Hillary Clinton for being a failed Secretary of State in a new ad, and he uses video of Clinton during her bout of pneumonia and after her 2013 concussion. With the exception of cheating Bernie out of the nomination, the Democrats have always proven to be far more loyal to each other than the Republicans. Ryan's move was prompted by the audio tape of Trump boasting that as a star, he could kiss and grope women without permission. Trump supporters are promising to punish GOP dissenters, but after the Virginia State Party chairman organized a protest outside the Republican National Committee headquarters yesterday, which still backs Trump, the campaign fired him. New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, who's running Trump's transition team, expressed disappointment at Trump's apology amid rampant rumors that Trump used the N-word on tape during an apprentice shoot. At a raucous Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania rally last night, Trump again implied Democrats are planning widespread voter fraud in Philadelphia to defeat him.
I hear these horror shows, and we have to make sure that this election is not stolen from us and is not taken away from us.
And though U.S. intelligence is convinced that Russian hackers are trying to undermine the U.S. election and are believed to be supplying WikiLeaks with material to make public, Trump sounded thrilled and read aloud several lines of paid, closed-door Clinton speeches made public by WikiLeaks.
This just came out. WikiLeaks! I love WikiLeaks. Crooked Hillary Clinton said that terrorism was not a threat, quote, not a threat to the nation.
Thank you, Carl. We thought we'd take a look at the big board tonight to look at the Electoral College map. Remember, it takes 270 Electoral College votes to win the presidency. Tonight we have 201 for Hillary Clinton, 164 for Donald Trump. Now, this is the map. Red, the blue, the gray states are key battleground states. As of tonight, if the election were tonight, in the average of polls, even if it's a razor-thin lead, this is how it would go down. Hillary Clinton would pick up Nevada, Colorado, Iowa, Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New Hampshire, Virginia, North Carolina, and Florida. Donald Trump would win as of tonight in the average of polls, Arizona and Georgia, although Georgia's close. That's the map. Look at the math. 347 Electoral College votes for Hillary Clinton, 191 for Donald Trump. Hillary Clinton would win the presidency with a landslide Electoral College win as of tonight. Obviously, anything can change in 4 weeks, but this is what the map looks like. A couple of other interesting numbers. The Elections Project says that 34% of Americans will cast their ballots early, either early voting in their state, absentee ballots. Some key states where that is happening, Florida, 2.7 million Floridians will vote early. There are already about 50,000 votes in. And here you see the breakdown. Republicans 43% to Democrats 38%. North Carolina, roughly 160,000 early votes, 26,000 so far. It's tied at 37%. And here in Iowa, roughly 260,000 early votes, 88,000 so far. And this is upside down. Democrats 56%, Republicans 26%. Iowa's a place that Donald Trump has a slight lead as of now. We have new evidence tonight about just how far the Obama administration was willing to go to protect Hillary Clinton ahead of her run for president. An arms dealer tells Fox News in an exclusive interview that the full weight of the Justice Department came down on him in an effort to hide a secret plan to funnel weapons to Libya that ultimately armed America's enemies. Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge has this exclusive story.
All of this happened under Hillary Clinton's watch. It would actually be Secretary Clinton.
In his first television interview since criminal charges were dropped against him, licensed arms dealer Mark Turi says the Obama administration, with the cooperation of Hillary Clinton's State Department, tried and failed to make him the fall guy for a 2011 covert weapons program to arm Libyan rebels that spun out of control.
I would say 100% I was victimized. To somehow discredit me, throw me under the bus, do whatever it took to protect their next presidential candidate.
5 years into the investigation, Turi says the Justice Department dropped the case to avoid public disclosure of the weapons program that was designed to force the ouster of Libyan dictator Muammar Gaddafi.
Those transcripts from current as well as former CIA officers were classified. If any of these relationships would have been revealed, it would have opened up a can of worms.
In 2011, the administration wanted to arm the Libyan rebels, but UN sanctions blocked the direct sale. Working with the U.S. government in Capitol Hill, Turi says he came up with a solution. Turi's plan was to have the U.S. government supply conventional weapons to the Gulf nations Qatar and UAE, who would then in turn supply them to Libya. Turi says he was cut out of the plan, and Clinton's State Department used its own people with weapons flowing to Libya and Syria.
That's how they lost control over it.
Who got these weapons? Was it al-Qaeda? Was it Ansar al-Sharia? Was it ISIS in the end?
All of them.
Turi exchanged emails in 2011 with then U.S. envoy to the Libyan opposition, Chris Stevens. A day after the exchange about Turi's State Department application to sell weapons, Clinton wrote this email to aide Jake Sullivan. Quote, FYI, the idea of using private security experts to arm the opposition should be considered.
Do you believe these email exchanges are a coincidence or connected?
When you look at this timeline, none of it was a coincidence. It was all strategically managed. It had to have come from her own internal circle.
Since first telling his story to Fox News, Turi says he's lost everything in his legal fight with the Justice Department.
Catherine, it's completely un-American.
In Washington, Catherine Herridge, Fox News.
Now to another interview. I've interviewed Donald Trump many times. Tonight, a look back at a conversation from 1999. When the billionaire businessman was considering a run for president with the Reform Party. At the time, Trump touted an economic plan calling for a one-time 14.25% tax on people with a net worth of more than $10 million, a one-time tax on wealth to pay for huge middle-class tax cuts.
This economy would just be booming, and that would be great.
Our Constitution has it that you can tax income, but your proposal would be to tax wealth. Is that constitutional?
Yeah, there's nothing wrong in the Constitution in terms of taxing the tax that I'm talking about. This would be really a tax that would benefit everybody, including the wealthy. I'm looking at this very seriously. I'll make a determination soon, and I'd only do it if I think that I would really make a difference to a lot of people, and if I was elected, I would make a very positive difference.
As far as the other field out there, you're not too impressed right now.
I'm personally not impressed, and I guess that's why I'm talking to you.
Well, do you think Trump has a chance to win on Election Day? Let me know on Twitter, at Bret Baier. Use the hashtag Special Report. You can get me on Facebook, too. The company building the Dakota Access Pipeline resumed construction today on private land near a North Dakota lake, where there have been environmental protests for months. Sunday, a federal appeals court ruled the project can resume on the land within 20 miles of Lake Oahe. $3.8 million, 1,200-mile pipeline is otherwise largely complete. The Pentagon says it is still weighing a military response to the firing of 2 missiles at 2 U.S. Navy ships Sunday night. The USS Mason and the USS Pence were conducting routine operations in the Red Sea off the coast of Yemen. Officials say the missiles came from territory in Yemen controlled by Houthi terror groups, which they're supplied by Iran. Both missiles failed, though, to reach those American ships. More saber rattling tonight from Russia aimed at the U.S. and its allies. Moscow says it will create a permanent naval base in Syria, expanding its military footprint in the Middle East. Russia says it is cooperating with China on efforts to fend off a threat by the U.S. missile defense program, and Vladimir Putin has canceled an upcoming trip to Paris after the French government revised its agenda for the visit to concentrate on Syria. The Taliban has launched a new attack on the capital of the Helmand province. A suicide car bombing killed at least 14 people Monday, including 10 police officers. Since the beginning of this year's fighting season, the Taliban have expanded their hold across most of that province in Afghanistan and have been at the gates of the provincial capital for weeks. The news is better concerning ISIS. New studies indicate the terror group is losing ground and influence. But that does not mean ISIS will go away quietly. Correspondent Benjamin Hall has that story tonight from our London newsroom.
Even before the battle for Mosul begins and the fighters prepare for the big assault, ISIS is already suffering major territorial losses. According to a report by the strategic research firm IHS Conflict, the terror group has lost 30% of its territory and now controls just around 25,000 square miles, roughly the size of West Virginia. US-led airstrikes played a major role in this, targeting leaders and destroying control centers. But today the State Department downplayed their involvement in the upcoming battle for Mosul.
The campaign to retake Mosul is an Iraqi campaign. It's an Iraqi plan and an Iraqi strategy.
Now, a fragile coalition of splintered groups are preparing to take back the city, and a leading terrorism expert is predicting the worst.
The group will want to try and turn it into some kind of propaganda-style final battle, because that plays into its apocalyptic strategy.
It's believed that ISIS would rather destroy the city than give it up, and fear is growing that the million-odd residents will be used as cover. Preparations are underway to house the refugees, but the worry now is that ISIS fighters will disperse, wait for an insurgency, then punish those who help rebuild.
And there would likely be a concerted campaign of assassinations, targeted killings, threatening anyone who who collaborates or cooperates with the government in any meaningful way.
Some go as far as to say that all along ISIS has just been preparing for an insurgency, which will go on for decades. The point is that even if ISIS lose all their territory, even if they cease to be a conventional force, they will leave chaos behind them. Then they'll watch as others fight amongst themselves, and then they'll return. It's the almost cyclical pattern of the Middle East. Bret?
Benjamin Hall in London. Benjamin, thank you. As we told you last night, Samsung is stopping sales of its much-troubled Galaxy Note 7 smartphone. A newer version designed to fix a battery problem that led to overheating and even fires apparently has problems of its own. Correspondent Julie Banderas takes a look.
It smelled like fireworks went off.
Phones up in flames.
I felt this really weird, burning sensation on my thumb. I have a small indentation from where it happened.
Samsung permanently pulled the plug on production of the Galaxy Note 7 smartphone over its smoking and exploding batteries after recalling 2.5 million phones last month and developing what were supposed to be new, safer batteries. The smartphone just couldn't stand the heat, literally melting in users' hands. This 13-year-old was holding her Samsung Galaxy Note 7 when it burnt her thumb.
Pulled it up and I saw smoke and I threw it on the floor.
The Federal Consumer Product Safety Commission is investigating other cases as well, like a replacement Galaxy phone catching fire while a passenger had it on board a Southwest Airlines flight earlier this week.
I noticed smoke just pouring out of my pocket, pulled the phone out of my pocket, threw it onto the ground where it continued to smoke.
The electronics giant advises phone owners to do the following: exchange their current Galaxy Note 7 for a Galaxy S7 or Galaxy S7 Edge, or contact their point of purchase to obtain a full refund. Adding insult to injury, when news broke Samsung was halting sales, the company's stock dropped by 8% in its home country of South Korea, while Apple stock soared. And today, in the Supreme Court, Apple battled Samsung over design patent rights, claiming Samsung copied many of the distinctive design features of Apple's iPhone.
Two lower courts ruled in Apple's favor. Now it's up to the Supreme Court justices to decide whether Samsung should pay Apple for the $400 million Samsung made selling the smartphones in question. Samsung is urging any customers with a Galaxy Note 7 to power it down and stop using the device. Bret, back to you.
Good advice, Julie. Thank you. The markets saw red today. The Dow lost 200. The S&P 500 slipped 27. The Nasdaq was off 82 points. Donald Trump rips Republicans, a blast from the past for Democrats, and President Obama campaigns in hurricane-ravaged North Carolina. We'll talk about all of it when the panel joins me next.
Isn't it too bad that we don't have stronger leadership on both sides? On both sides. I mean, you know, you have people that can't fix a budget, but then they start talking about their nominee, but they can't fix the budget. Isn't it really sad that we don't have stronger leadership on both sides?
Republican leaders here in Iowa, all across America, are standing with the Trump-Pence team, and we're honored by that. But I really do believe that the Republican leaders should join millions of Americans and support the Republican nominee for president.
This garbage that some have muttered about, well, no, it's so important we keep the majority in the House so that we can keep Hillary in check. My gosh, Stuart, did you see how well we kept Obama in check?
Well, today was a lot about Republicans. The GOP nominee tweeting out starting this morning, had lots of tweets, but here's just a few of them. Despite winning the second debate in a landslide, every poll, it's hard to do well when Paul Ryan and others give zero support. Next one, our very weak, ineffective leader, Paul Ryan, had a bad conference call where his members went wild at his disloyalty. It is so nice that the shackles have been taken off of me and I can now fight for America the way I want to. With the exception of cheating Bernie out of the nomination, the Democrats have always proven to be far more loyal to each other than the Republicans. Disloyal R's are far more difficult than crooked Hillary. They come at you from all sides. They don't know how to win. I will teach them. The very foul-mouthed Senator John McCain begged for my support during his primary. I gave, he won, then he dropped me over locker room remarks. Paul Ryan, through a spokesman, issued a statement saying Paul Ryan is focusing the next month on defeating Democrats, and all Republicans running for office should probably do the same. That's what today's news from the campaign trail was. Let's bring in our panel. Steve Hayes, senior writer for the Weekly Standard. A.B. Stoddard, associate editor at Real Clear Politics. And Monica Crowley, editor and columnist for the Washington Times. You know, people have long said, Monica, that, you know, there may be a civil war within the Republican Party and then others blow it off. I mean, this is here.
Yes.
It's reality.
And it is real, yes. And Donald Trump is fighting back. Look, because Donald Trump represents an existential threat to the bipartisan ruling class, that means that he's fighting a multi-front war. So he is taking incoming from the president, the White House, Mrs. Clinton, her campaign, the Democratic Party, the Republican establishment, and the media. If he wins this race, it'll be a straight-up miracle. I think, though, that what he is doing here in terms of fighting back, this is why you have surrogates. The Republican nominee for president should not be punching down. He should not even be taking on these fights. That's what his surrogates are for. I think he would have been better served to take the opposite approach and say, look, when I am elected president, I'm going to need Republican majorities in the House, so vote for these candidates. Even if you don't like me, vote for them. If he reverses the narrative and reaches out to Paul Ryan, reaches out to these Republican candidates, you know, it could have a potentially good payoff for him down the road. That's what an effective leader would do.
A.B., I tell you, it was kind of baffling as you looked at all of the tweets. There really wasn't a lot of Hillary Clinton campaign tweets. There was one late in the day we'll talk about in the next panel. What about this, and how does the RNC go about knocking on doors to get people out to vote for Donald Trump and representative from this district?
Yeah, that's the key. I mean, he's fighting the primary campaign. He loves to fight the primary campaign. It's what he always reverts to when he's not teleprompter Trump and under Kellyanne Conway's strict rules. He's now off the teleprompter and out of his shackles and in nothing left to lose mode. But this is a man with a pitiful presence on the ground in terms of what 2016 national presidential political campaign mechanics are supposed to look like. Terrible anecdotes from around the battlegrounds where there's just not enough of an operation. If you are going to disconnect and divorce yourself from the party that way, it really makes a material difference, precinct by precinct, county by county, with enthusiasm, resources, whether or not your name is included on the call sheet when they make the call or when they knock on the door and they give the speech about, you know, the councilman so-and-so. Is Donald Trump being promoted by the party? If he disconnects from the party, it's between 1 and I don't know how many percentage points, but it absolutely makes a difference. He's just a man on his own now.
We are 1 month away, Steve, and you talk about the balance of power. You look at the Senate. It's a thin majority if you look at the races that are on the board for Republicans. And there you see it on the board, 54-46, 44 Democrats, 2 independents that caucus with the Democrats. You know, they could lose it as of tonight. But the House actually may be in play. Some pollsters are saying some of those races are going the other way.
Yeah, if the polls today, if the NBC Wall Street Journal poll, which has Hillary +9, is the result on Election Day, I think you're looking at a loss of the House for Republicans.
So they shifted to +7 today with the post-debate stuff, but still,
if
even at +7.
If you have it in the four-way, yeah, the +9 I think was the two-way. But either way, you're talking about a blowout for the Democrats and the potential of Republicans losing the House, which is why it makes so little sense tactically for Donald Trump to be attacking Paul Ryan, who hasn't, by the way, unendorsed Donald Trump. I mean, Ryan's getting a lot of heat. It's not just that you have loud conservatives on one side and others, anti-establishment types, criticizing Paul Ryan for not fully supporting Donald Trump. You have a lot of people on the other side saying you need to walk away from Donald Trump. I mean, this is a disaster. If it's a cancer, you need to cut it out right now. And Ryan is trying to live in the middle of those two camps. I mean, in a way, it's sort of fitting. 28 days out from the general election, Donald Trump, who was a Democrat when he was younger, spent most of his life as a Democrat, has attacked Republicans throughout his career. It's sort of fitting if he spends the last month attacking Republicans.
All right, so
but it won't get him a win.
On the Democratic side, you had Hillary Clinton today campaigning with Al Gore in Florida, former Democratic nominee. He was making Monica a couple of points. One, the environmental climate change point, but also in Florida, especially for him, make sure that you don't vote for the Ralph Nader types because it can cost you an election. Obviously, he lost in 2000.
Yes, his presence there with Mrs. Clinton is about two things. The crucial battleground of Florida, because if Trump loses Florida, he loses the election. And secondly, it's about Mrs. Clinton's outreach to millennials, because when you talked about Ralph Nader, of course, they're obsessed with climate change as an issue. Al Gore is the main cheerleader for that issue. But more importantly, all of the recent polling shows that about 65% of millennial voters would consider a third party, whether that's Jill Stein or Gary Johnson or somebody else. So Mrs. Clinton is trying to lock down that age group and make sure that they come out for her.
Next up, new emails about Hillary Clinton from WikiLeaks, with thousands more on the way. The highlights from today's batch coming up.
Did the department give preference to people or companies that had donated to the Clinton Foundation in terms of contracts to help Haiti recover from the earthquake?
We found no evidence that preferential treatment was given to any particular entity or organization with respect to contracts. Again, what I'd say is see no evidence that preferential treatment was given to anybody based on their association with the Clinton Foundation or with the former president himself.
Well, there may be some WikiLeaks emails out, including one about Haiti assistance. Need you to flag when people are friends of WJC, William Jefferson Clinton. Most I can probably ID, but not all. Response, is this an FOB, friend of Bill? If not, she should go through the CIDI.org. In other words, go through the bureaucratic place. Donald Trump tweeted on this. Crooked State Department gave special attention to friends of Bill after Haiti earthquake. Unbelievable. We're back with the panel. Steve, we have seen these denials of any indication of anything that the State Department did, anything. And yet, you're starting to see some things that at least point to something in these emails.
Well, Trump is clearly right. What he said in his tweet is entirely accurate. You just saw in that one exchange that we just highlighted obvious preference given to a friend of Bill. Otherwise, there's no reason to identify the friends of Bill. What are they going to do? Not give preference to friends of Bill? Those people are going to be excluded? Of course, that's what was at play. I mean, it's embarrassing to have the State Department spokesman go up day after day after day and say things that just aren't true. But he's part of a long pattern that we've heard from administration officials, that we've heard from Clinton campaign officials, and that we've heard from Bill and Hillary Clinton themselves. Bill Clinton said in September, nothing was ever done for anybody because they were contributors to the foundation. Nothing. That's as categorical as it can get, and it's every bit as false as his claim that he didn't have sexual relations with that woman.
Okay, AB, here's another one. This deals with Donna Brazile, now the interim DNC chair. She was then vice chair and also an analyst at CNN. She writes Jen Palmieri, the communication director at the Hillary Clinton campaign, the subject line, "From time to time, I get the questions in advance." Now, this is one day in advance of the CNN town hall with Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders. Here's one that worries me about HRC. And then she goes on to list one of the questions that was provided by one of the people at the town hall. And then he asked this very question to Hillary Clinton.
In light of the fact that there are documented cases of innocent people who have been executed in our country, I would like to know, how can you still take your stance on the death penalty in light of what you know right now?
This is such a profoundly difficult question, and what I have said and what I continue to believe is that the states have proven themselves incapable of carrying out fair trials.
Well, it's not profoundly difficult if you know the question.
No, but let's start with the fact that actually on any controversial issue, you should prepare as a presidential candidate for any question on any position you've taken that was difficult, whether or not you're fed the question in advance.
But get to the heart of the matter here. Donna Brazile giving the question to Jen Palmieri the night before the town hall.
This is the thing.
Now, wait. Here's what she says. As it pertains to CNN debates, I never had access to questions and would never have shared them with the candidates if I did. I'm deeply disappointed that the Republican leaders of the party of Reagan are publicly using information illegally obtained by the Russians, because the national security of our country should not be a partisan issue. Now, it shows that.
The truth is that many people who are influential in the party believed from the very start, from 2013, from 2005, that Hillary Clinton was running for president and that she would be the de facto nominee any minute until she got it. She lost in 2008. From that moment forward, she was the de facto nominee for 2016. And they all are on Team Hillary. It was very clear in the DNC emails that were leaked in July. And it was an obstacle to Bernie Sanders. And it's not, I mean.
What does Bernie Sanders say about this tonight? I mean, what if you're on the Sanders team and you're looking at this, and there was already all this evidence from the DNC leak of what happened inside the organization, and now you see that a question was given ahead of a town hall.
If you're Bernie Sanders and his supporters tonight, you are outraged and you're furious. This was a core theme of Bernie Sanders throughout the primary process, that we are living in a corrupt, rigged system. Donald Trump has also picked up that as a core theme. Both of these candidates have and had tremendous traction with this, because the vast majority of Americans do believe that the system is rigged to benefit the powerful, the wealthy, and the influential, i.e. Mrs. Clinton. So, you know, in all of the talk about the civil war going on in the Republican Party, Mrs. Clinton, now with all of these disclosures coming out via WikiLeaks, she's got to be a little bit worried about her Democratic base. The Bernie Sanders supporters must come out for her on November 8th, and if they don't, she's got a problem.
If it gets picked up anyplace, I mean, if these emails get aired anywhere else, or
yeah, well, it'll be